All right, very good. So I'm going to introduce our lead presenter, and from there I'll let her introduce the other members of the team. So we have here Myra Moss, who is a professor and educator in community development at Ohio State University. And she is part of the OSU Extension's Community Development Unit and has statewide responsibilities. And she's leading today's team of 5 in their presentation, which you're going to have to give the title of, Myra, because I didn't.
Oh, okay. Building an entrepreneur-friendly community.
All right. Oh, so Myra, take it away.
Okay. Becky, do we have the slides? Okay, there we go. Thanks very much, Nicole, for the introduction. And we want to welcome you to this NACDEP Wednesday webinar. Today, we're going to share with you a program that was first developed in 2008. I can't believe it's that long ago, through a USDA RCDI grant. And it was 10.5 sessions long and half-day sessions. So we decided within the last few years to combine those into 3-day-long sessions. So this is the curriculum we're going to present to you today. And the pilot was offered in a county in Southern Ohio. The purpose of the program is to help community leaders understand the contributions entrepreneurs make to their local economy, because sometimes we found in communities, they don't really recognize that. They might recognize the large industrial manufacturers who create a lot of jobs in one specific location, but not all the small entrepreneurs throughout the community, which also contribute greatly. So we're going to talk about how these entrepreneurs contribute to the local economy and help to build, how this program helps to build the capacity for those leaders to develop their own entrepreneur-friendly community. So I'm Myra Moss. I'm with OSU Extension. My co-presenters are Nancy Bowen-Elzey, who is a state field specialist, also with OSU Extension, and Becky Nesbitt, who's a state CD educator with OSU Extension. The 2 other team members are Gwen Stewart and Godwin Apalaya, and both of them are also on this webinar, so they can answer questions too. Next slide. Okay, so I've got a question for you folks, and you can either answer it in the chat or answer it verbally. So the question is, why is a vibrant entrepreneur ecosystem important to your community? And let me just say, I'm making a huge assumption, since you're at this webinar, that you do feel it's important. So if you can provide some feedback on why you think that is, that would be terrific. And also, Gwen's going to monitor the chat.
Also, Myra, there's a question asking for a concept check before we begin on when you say entrepreneur, what is in mind for the program?
Okay, so what is an entrepreneur? Is that the question?
Jason, is that what you're asking? Yes. What is when you say entrepreneur?
How do we define it?
Right.
Yeah, what do you have in your mind? You know, we have this issue with entrepreneurship where, you know, there's what we think in the academic literature of an entrepreneur, and then there's the colloquial use where it just means sort of small businesses in general, people founding businesses, but not new value creation or anything like that.
Exactly. And I understand exactly what you're saying. And for the communities we work with, we have to kind of throw a broader net. So entrepreneur to us means small business. Okay, so any answers coming in, Gwen? Gwen, I think
You're muted.
Sorry, Michael says, because we all want more than Amazon trucks in our community.
Good point, Michael.
Some define entrepreneurs really broadly, from beginning farmers to non-employers to innovators.
Right.
And traditional economic development does little to cultivate successful entrepreneurs. A vibrant ecosystem is a democratized approach to community wealth development.
Any other comments?
Also, entrepreneurship is also problem solving with a local needs focus. In rural communities, it's also a way for people to stay within the community.
Good point. Yes.
And also, Jason comments that it leads to resiliency. A diverse ecosystem helps weather shocks.
Good point. Okay, I had a few thoughts on this too that I'm just going to go ahead and share. And one, the last person just mentioned, advantage is economic diversity, because not all of your eggs are in one basket. So it's like having a diverse portfolio. You have, if you've got a strong entrepreneur ecosystem, you've got a number of different employers, different sizes throughout your community. It also leads to an enhanced quality of life, because don't we all, and I mean, this picture is perfect. Here we've got a coffee shop and a bread garage. So, you know, these are the places that we want in our community: access to goods and services, places to gather, meet our friends at. We want those services that are available, and place, you know, again, also entertainment, arts, and culture. So those all would go into a diverse entrepreneur ecosystem. Plus, they provide an environment attractive to locating professionals, manufacturing employees. What it does is it creates your community as a desirable place to live. Schools are often first when people consider moving to communities, but access to services and shopping is next. Okay, next slide. So, okay, this is about the Great Resignation, that 32% of Americans were quitting their jobs to start a business. And we've all heard about this. And I think a lot of it is because we want to balance work and family more effectively. And we had a taste of this during COVID when many of us work from home. And we began to prioritize major issues in our lives, deciding that we wanted to do something we loved and felt passionate about that was also financially beneficial and could support our family. So what happens with this Great Resignation is it really does provide an opportunity for us to identify entrepreneurs who might want to locate in our community. Next slide. So what we found is that local leaders often don't.
She's muted. I can hear her.
Pardon? Okay. Local leaders often do not understand the key role that they play in order to help create a local culture that nurtures entrepreneurship. A supportive ecosystem doesn't just happen by chance. As a leader, you have to first understand the factors and characteristics that create such a culture and understand how you can implement that in your community. Next slide. So let's look at the program goals. The first thing, is important to have the right people at the table when you're launching a program like this. So who are the local leaders we want to attend this program? It's important to have those folks who can really make a difference in the community, have access to resources, or you know, can basically make their community entrepreneur friendly. So the kind of leaders we're looking at are elected and appointed officials, like county officials, mayors, township trustees, possibly, under appointed economic and development directors, planners, chamber, maybe retail merchants. In Vinton County, which was our pilot, we use the Convention and Visitor Bureau because travel and tourism was becoming a much more important industry in the community. You also want not-for-profit leaders, social service organizations, schools, tech programs, bankers, other lenders, and businesses. And there's this quote I like that innovation occurs at the intersection of the disciplines. So the more diverse your group is, the more people are bringing their own perspectives and different ideas in, which creates more robust results. So what are the goals? To know how important entrepreneurs are to the community. We all celebrate a new company coming in, maybe manufacturer, like Intel's coming into Central Ohio. That's the big buzz right now. So you don't want to lose those entrepreneurs, though, also those small 2 or 3 person shops. So how can you make sure that they're identified and you implement strategies that's going to help them grow? So how do you develop your community as an ecosystem? Part of it is you need to change the culture. Next slide. Okay. When we first did the USDA RCDI program, it was all about capacity building. We're actually not allowed under the grant to do things for people. We had to help train them and educate them so that they could do it for themselves, so that after we left, they had the knowledge, awareness, and tools to achieve their goals on their own and tailored to their local community. So one thing we did to build local capacity was we started out by helping them understand what entrepreneurs' needs were and to appreciate them as a large group in the community. We use data to identify current conditions and possible opportunities, and how do you utilize programs local, state, and federal level that can help to support and finance entrepreneurs. And then last thing, creation of a strategic direction, which is developed by the community to help them move forward. Next slide. So the Building Entrepreneur-Friendly Community program provides resources, training, and tools to develop the community capacity to better understand and support the local entrepreneurial economy. So let's see how this played out through the 3 curriculum modules. Next slide. Okay, before I start this, I'm going to mention a little bit about our pilot. It was in a community in southeastern Ohio. I believe the county is the smallest in the state in terms of population, certainly not in terms of square mileage. And it was very much a natural resource-based economy, traditionally forestry, some agriculture, but increasingly travel and tourism, because they're just south of Hocking County, which is impacted by Hocking Hills, which has just developed a very robust tourism economy. So they're starting to see some spillover in terms of cabin development, tourism-related businesses, and people who are coming in from Hocking County because they were staying up there in a cabin but wanted to do a day trip to something different. Now, Vinton County had no chamber. They had at one point, but there were some issues with that. But they do have an active Convention and Visitors Bureau, and and the development office was, hi, Susan. Yes, that's Susan's home county. So she knows it quite well. There were forward-thinking businesses, some retail businesses in the downtown area, and the schools were very involved with what was happening. And they do have a branch of Rio Grande University in the local area. So not only do they have some tech schools, not exactly in the local area, but in the region, and also very involved public schools who were trying to do a lot with youth entrepreneurship. Plus, another resource that we had was our local extension office, 4-H person who was very connected throughout the community. Okay, so a few things we think are unique about this curriculum is that it's locally based. We threaded into the discussion of tools and resources, the local situation, their assets and limitations, and what made the curriculum relevant to this specific community. We discussed capital for entrepreneurs and included their local and regional revolving loan funds as an example, and also the banks that their local services or their local banks and the services that they offered. Secondly, the strategic considerations that arise from module 1 and 2 with discussions at the end of the module flow into the strategic planning process, which Becky is going to describe. And then the participants get to hear directly from local entrepreneurs about what works well and what needs to be improved. So module 1 was about understanding entrepreneur basics. What is an entrepreneur? What motivates each? What are their challenges and what do they do to need to thrive, need to thrive, and kind of dispelled some risks about entrepreneurs or some myths about entrepreneurs that they're very risk oriented when actually they're more calculated risk oriented. And what can the community do to recognize that there is risk, but not overly, so if they fail, they don't become a pariah in the community, because oftentimes you'll have serial entrepreneurs. Well, they start up one business, it might not work, so they learn from that and start up another one. So, to hang in there and be positive about what they're facing. The second module is about, hang on one second here. The first module also deals with the wellness profile. And we got feedback from the evaluations of the program that they really liked the data sharing. We shared a broadband map with them, and we shared an analysis of their community's economy. We also had a panel of local entrepreneurs that they got to hear from, and this was maybe one of the more powerful parts of the program, because these entrepreneurs did not pull any punches. They were pretty honest about what they were facing in terms of problems, how they started out. We found out that Main Street entrepreneurs complained because the county commissioners had never come in to visit their stores. They'd never stepped foot in their stores. So obviously they felt neglected and unappreciated because they were in the community, maybe a 1-minute walk from the courthouse. So that was something that needed to be recognized. Then the module 2 is elements of a successful entrepreneurship program to identify key elements. And it also included strategies to identify and engage entrepreneurs through an entrepreneur targeted outreach and engagement strategy. So this is where we really got into the nuts and bolts about what do entrepreneurs need? What do your entrepreneurs need? And then how can we develop that? And then module 3 was developing a focused strategic plan. And we facilitated discussions from modules 1 and 2 to jumpstart the strategic plan. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nancy Bowen to explain the program deliverables and the creation of the entrepreneurship wellness profile. And then after Nancy, Becky will cover the development of the strategic plan.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be a part of this team. We've been working together for a couple of years now. And our curriculum actually supports 3 deliverables, the wellness program profile, which I'm going to talk about, actionable strategic plan. And then the team is something that Myra was talking about already regarding how we want it to be diverse. And actually, I think we spent almost as much time, if I'm not mistaken, in helping the community put together a team and synthesizing that team, and as we did actually carrying out the rest of the program, because we're looking for a specific diversity and a combination of participants, government, business, school, various entrepreneurs, and we're looking for variation in ages and race. We really see that it needs to be a diverse group, and they need to be credible community members too that can lend real support, serve as mentors, connect to resources. So this team is really, I like it to the business retention expansion teams that people have on the local level. That, these are the teams that go out and meet with businesses that, talk to businesses about their needs. So a similar type of team. I don't know if I covered that okay, Gwen. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the team itself?
That sounded great. Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. I do know we also asked at the local level, you have one individual serving to connect and inform the team between our team so basically to be the facilitator. And as Myra was mentioning, we were very fortunate to have a 4-H educator on the local level, and Becky had been working with that educator on another project, but that was an essential piece. Next slide, please. So the entrepreneurship profile, why are we doing that? Really, the purpose is when we devised this curriculum, we knew that the partners would need to better understand their existing conditions in order to move forward with a new reality. I mean, what do they want? What if they know what their existing situation is, then they're better able to frame a new situation to develop a thriving ecosystem supporting entrepreneurship. And so the profile is really a framework from which to start. It's an assemblage of data and from data sources that we were able to find. And I'm here to tell you, I mean, it's not a complete list. I'm sure there's plenty of other data sources we haven't tapped into, but these data sources are accessible, and they can be, so they're easily accessible, and they can measure entrepreneurial growth and or the contribution of small business sectors, small business growth, and or sectors that small businesses reside in. So, our real purpose here was to develop a profile infographic. Now, for the test county, for the pilot county, we didn't get there quite with the front back piece we wanted to develop. It turned out to be really an assemblage of charts and graphs, but we'd like to kind of synthesize that into kind of a front back kind of infographic. So that's our plan. The profile will actually also not only serve as a benchmark, but it'll also help to be a teaching and tracking tool so that local partners can interpret and update the data on their own. We teach them how to find the data, how to use the data, how to interpret the data. And then they can then share that data and that situation, that story with the public in a lay language that makes sense. And it's really a series of charts and tables that tell the story. It's a powerful tool to measure change over time. Next slide, please. So, we want the data to answer specific questions for the partners. And here's a list of some of the questions, maybe not all the questions, but some of the questions that the local partners may ask. What are the business conditions supporting entrepreneurship? So one key indicator might be how many businesses are starting? How many are staying in business? So what is the what is the survival rate of startup businesses? And I think that can be a key question for any business. I know when I was in my previous position as an economic development director / extension educator for a county, we had decided as a community to shift our focus to small business, but we needed a way to track change. So we got together with the county auditor's office who collects vendor licenses, which of course startups will need. And that was our way of tracking at that time. This is back about, I hate to say it, but about 15, 20 years back. So we were able to see, okay, who's starting? And then check in with these businesses, keep track of who's starting, who's still in business. And it really did help us kind of find out how well those businesses are doing. And then in checking in with them, obviously you're able to ask questions about what was working, what wasn't working. Other questions might be, what are the characteristics of the small businesses in your community? What sectors do they represent? And how much of the overall economy do they represent, percentage-wise? I think, Gwen, I think Purdue shared a statistic with you on our region in Southern Ohio, that over, I think it was 95% were small businesses in that region. So it's usually a pretty high percentage, especially when you're talking about rural counties. And then it's nice to know, okay, what is the contribution of these sectors? So asking that question, okay, they're low, our small businesses are concentrated in these maybe top 5 sectors. What do they actually contribute to the economy? And then maybe coming out of that data can be, you might be able to emerge some obvious gaps so that we can see some opportunities that emerge for growth. Next slide. So here are the components we use for Vinton County. Again, these might change, might be different as time goes on. I know I checked on a couple of them just in the last few weeks. And sure enough, the websites that I went to, they had changed a little bit. So it's good to stay on top of these. But to start with a general profile, so, we're just talking about the basic demographics, is easily gotten through the census, sometimes through the state economic development source or other public sources, to just track your population, household income, GDP, maybe occupational trends in terms of types of occupations and skill sets, and use a variety of indicators to kind of just tell you the general story. The second on the list here is a proprietorship measures that are provided in Stats America, a wonderful source. And I would just ask everybody now, anybody aware? Have you used Stats America? I'm sure many of you have. So if you could answer in the chat, that'd be great. If not, I recommend going to their site because it's very robust in terms of what it provides, not only related to small businesses and proprietors, but also just economies in general. It's a service of the Indiana Business Research Center. Purdue is a partner. And the indices include success rates, change in rates in terms of proprietorship, all housed within this innovation intelligence tool that they provide. And it ranks, it's really nice that it ranks all 3,100 plus counties nationwide in terms of some of these indices. So it's a really nice piece and it's free. Also, basic stats like the size and the size of small businesses and how much, what they represent in terms of your economy. Those statistics can be gotten from a couple of sources like youreconomy.org. Now, youreconomy.org at one time was completely free. It's available through University of Wisconsin. But now there is a small fee in order to access some of the small business statistics, especially on the county level. But it's a great way, it's a great site to actually get the percent of total, starts and closures. And then another really good indicator is small business sectors and their contribution. A lot of this data now I access through Implant, which does have a pretty hefty fee, but I venture to guess that some of the universities out there, most of them do have access to Implant. But the small business sectors can also be found on Census County Business Pattern Reports. I also like a consumer segment profile. So we can get that through Prism. Claritas has a Prism program that provides a consumer segment profile, really fun. I like to provide that too. So these are just the components. Now, in bringing this assemblage of components together, you're basically able to tell a story. And that's the purpose of these sources. Is there any questions before I move on the sources? Or on the data components? Also, I've got a big question. I would really like to have you answer in the chat, and that is, what do you think is a representation percentage-wise of businesses 5 employees or less nationwide? If you could put your guess in the chat, I'd appreciate it. What do you think that size business represents nationwide in terms of percentage? Oh, we're getting close. Wow. Yeah. Everybody's really right on track. Okay, next slide. We'll show you the answer. It's 92%. So it's bigger than you think. Here's the deal, though. It represents, although micro businesses with 5 or fewer employees represent 92% of all the businesses in the nation, those same businesses only represent about 17% of the total jobs. But that doesn't mean that their presence is not felt, because as Myra was explaining, it's the fact that they're filling all these niches out there. They're filling all these, they're helping to diversify the economy. They're a huge impact. Next slide. So I wanted to just provide a couple examples of the results that we shared with Vinton County. And in Vinton County, we developed a spreadsheet to show the top 5 small business sectors by number of jobs. And we used the county business pattern data. Then we used IMPLAN to find out what the impact of those sectors were. And as you can see, individual and family services floated to the top with 261 jobs in Vinton County, which is a lot of jobs that a particular sector represents. But then if you move over to the third column on that spreadsheet, you'll see that the output, which is basically total sales for that sector, doesn't come close to the 4th on the list in terms of jobs, which is canned fruits and vegetables manufacturing. So these are statistics that are really important for the community to understand. You know, we do have a lot of jobs located in certain sectors, but maybe the greater impact is related to the total sales and the output and or labor income. So you can sort these sectors any way you want. But I did sort them by employment just to show how they floated to the top that way. Of course, you would expect restaurants to be right up there, farming to be right up there, since it is a farming economy. So in the United States, I think it's interesting to note that the highest proportion of small businesses were in professional, scientific, and technical services. So those gig businesses. So we might see a gap when we're looking at Vinton County. We might see the fact that, hey, maybe we can work on, maybe we have a gap here in terms of the sectors. Maybe we can work on, if we're comparing ourselves to the nation, we're maybe a little lacking in the gig economy related businesses. So maybe we need to work on that, and or retail, construction, which are also high percentages nationwide.
Nancy, Angelica is asking in the chat, how did you find the output?
That is found in IMPLAN. So, and I don't know another source to do that. In IMPLAN, you can enter a sector code and you can find the value added, labor income, and output for each of 550 something sectors. IMPLAN is a very, very, I think, helpful tool to develop a profile like this. You don't need it, don't have to have it, but it certainly is a very powerful tool to have. Thanks for that question. Any other questions on that? Next slide. Here's another example of a data output. We talked about, I briefly mentioned the PRISM program through Claritas. It's claritas360.com. And if you go to that website and plug in your zip code, it'll give you a consumer segment profile. It's really cool. It's free. And what it does is it gives you a description of each of the consumer segments. It gives them a name, and then it'll provide you with lifestyle characteristics. And if you get a little bit deeper than what I've got here on the slide, you can find out some general characteristics about their spending habits. So, and this is all based on nationally collected sales data that tracks spending on the local level. I just think it can be real helpful to kind of round out all the data, because with this, you can see where are they spending their money? Does it align with the sectors that we've been able to pull out as being the top sectors? And if not, maybe we have some work to do in terms of where to fill some market niches and develop opportunities for small businesses. So I think that's a real handy thing to do, and it's free, it's fun to do. Next slide, please. Here are some of the resources and links I've mentioned, and a couple others that I haven't mentioned. So this is what we're using now, but that's not to say we're going to expand and use others as time goes on. Any questions? Thanks, everybody. I'm going to move it over to Becky now.
So as Myra and Nancy mentioned, the final component, the final deliverable of this program is for the group to develop a strategic plan of action to help the community create a path to achieving the kind of entrepreneur-friendly community that they're envisioning. And we realized that each group that we work with are likely to have folks with a wide range of experience in developing and executing strategic plans. So as a result, we think it's beneficial to help participants understand the components or the basic elements of a good plan, as well as the many benefits that can result from taking time to think through the intentional and measurable actions that form the path to achieving their goals. So those ideas make up the learning objectives for Module 3 that you'll see on the left of the screen. We explore with the group 4 basic parts of a strategic plan, and you'll see those in the colorful boxes on the right. And they include an examination of where the community is currently, a discussion and exploration of where they would like to be, an intentional prescribed plan for how to achieve the desired goals. So in other words, how do they plan to get there? And finally, identifying some keys for documenting progress and keeping the plan on track. In this process, we want folks to begin to think critically about their community early in the process. So as Myra mentioned, we have incorporated in the first 2 sessions, the first 2 steps of this. So in modules 1 and module 2, we include a group discussion that we call strategic considerations. And that helps the participants kind of ponder and apply the information that they learned in that session. So for instance, in module 1, the group will consider and discuss what helps and hinders entrepreneur growth and sustainability in their community. How does the community support and nurture entrepreneur growth? How might the community get in the way of that local business development? So the first step is sort of taking an assessment of where the community currently stands in terms of entrepreneur or local business development. In module 2, the strategic consideration focuses on where they want to be. What is the desired future they envision for their community? What are the most critical needs or issues that should be addressed to help create a dynamic business community that encourages entrepreneurial growth and support? So the second step challenges the group to think critically about not just where they are, but also where they want to be in regard to entrepreneurial health in their community. So the information that is shared, discussed, generated, and recorded in modules 1 and 2 is carried into module 3. And that's when the ideas are kind of put into categories, and then we ask them to prioritize those, because obviously they don't have the time or the resources to achieve all of those. And then eventually the ones that they prioritize, those get translated into specific, measurable, attainable goals. And for each goal, the group develops a list of actions to help them achieve that desired outcome. And finally, the last step in the process is to talk through with the group how to build in accountability and maintain momentum to keep the plan moving in a forward direction. We share ideas about how they can document achievement, how they might address obstacles along the way, as well as strategies to assure that the strategic plan continues to be part of the regular discussions and meetings of the entrepreneur support team that Nancy talked about earlier as one of the deliverables. So what you see here is a high-level summary of the strategic plan that was created from that group that both Nancy and Myra have talked about in Vinton County. Now, as Myra said, Vinton County is a very small rural county. It's located in southeastern Ohio. It's actually part of Ohio's Appalachian region. And as Myra mentioned, it is actually by population the smallest county in the state, with about 13,000 residents. So like most small rural counties, they have limited resources. And the people who call this beautiful place home have to do a lot with a little. So you'll see in their plan that they prioritize two main areas for focus for the next 3 years. The first one is community support, that they define as strengthening human infrastructure to support existing and emerging entrepreneurs. And the second area that they want to focus on is education and marketing, which for this group involves creating strategies to increase local business activities. So one of the elements that I think is so important when working with groups that are putting together a strategic plan is to have goals that are, yes, aspirational, very important, but also must be attainable, especially for groups and communities like this one with very limited resources, not just limited funds, but a limited number of people who volunteer to be part of this process. So as you look at the goals under each area, they may seem fairly simple for some larger, more developed communities. But these are the goals that are right and that make sense for that community. So our hope is to provide them with the data that Nancy talked about, the information, the tools to help them envision a path forward that motivates them to stay involved and that generates success and excitement and energy to grow their core entrepreneurship support team. And in addition to that, when we think about long-term impact, we also hope that this helps them build a type of strategic thinking and planning that they can then apply to their other community goals. When we envisioned what we wanted from this project, we decided to offer the curriculum to two types of audiences. One, which you'll see in the second bullet on this slide, is to deliver the program directly to local leaders and others in communities who are interested in developing a sustainable entrepreneurial culture. Now, our team is pretty small, as we mentioned earlier. There are only 5 people on our team, and a few of us on the team have been around for a while. So I'm going to put myself at the top of that category, which means that we've been thinking recently about succession planning for our discipline for the days when we're enjoying our retirement. So we also knew that it was unlikely that our small team of 5 would be able to accommodate very many requests for this program. So as we developed the program from the very beginning, we also plan to deliver the materials in a train-the-trainer type of approach for community or business leaders, for educators in the community, community planners, or even for other extension professionals who might find the information useful in their plans to create entrepreneur-friendly communities. We're open to offering the information in a face-to-face situation, in a hybrid of in-person or virtual sessions, as well as all virtual presentations, which we thought might work best for other extension folks who'd like to learn a little bit more about how they can incorporate this in their own community. So as we mentioned, these are the members in our team. In addition to Myra and Nancy and me are Gwen Stewart and Godwin Apalia. Gwen and Godwin are CD educators who both work in community and economic development for their communities. And Gwen has placed into the chat a document that you can download that's an overview of everything we talked about today. It even includes a bit more detail about what the learning objectives are. It also includes our contact info, and it includes a website that you can visit where you can actually download the full strategic plan for Vinton County that we talked about. Now, we tried to leave some time for questions. So I don't necessarily want you to do this at the moment, but as we finish today, we'd be very grateful if you would take a moment to click the link that Gwen has placed in chat that will take you to a quick evaluation of teaching. You can also scan the code on the screen to get you there in the same direction. So I will open it up to any thoughts or questions that you might have. You might want to scan that thing now if you're interested in doing that, because I'm going to stop sharing my screen. As I mentioned, Gwen has placed that link in the chat if you want to click on it that way.
Very good. Thank you, Becky and team. All right. So questions, comments, feel free to unmute, or you can put that question or comment in the chat.
Nicole, I was just going to comment on Becky's portion with the Vinton County folks. I love the idea that their 4-H educator was involved, and throughout the conversations, he would weave in, we can't forget the youth. You know, a lot of small communities especially are worried about brain drain, and bringing in the young people to the conversations of where do you want to be and what do you want to do better is so critical. So I just encourage everyone to keep that top of mind.
I have a question from Kansas. So I really appreciate your presentation. It sounded to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but it sounded to me like most of the work that you've been doing is in communities where maybe there isn't a lot of EcoDevo activity sort of as baseline. I'm curious if you've had experiences where there is like a lot of public investment in economic development corporations or SPDCs, or just kind of an already established group of sort of traditional economic development actors who are already present, and like how do we insert that sort of entrepreneurial ecosystem conversation into those communities where that discussion is kind of already established, but maybe at a different level?
I know we're.
It's okay, because I don't know the answer to the question either.
I would just say, I know our team is actually talking to a county right now that's the fastest growing county in Ohio, Delaware. It's right adjacent to Columbus. And they are interested in having us deliver this program there. It would be through our extension office. But we would be working with a variety of, as you say, economic development actors in the community. We have not done it yet, but this would be our first.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we could do is, since we start where the community is, what we can do is, you know, when we analyze the community, look at what are the support services that are already there. How do we then bring those into the discussion? How do we have those folks at the table? And really, it would be kind of trying to move them to the next step. The program we did in Vinton County was very basic, but there are other ways to do this, which could add in more STEM related opportunities and also draw on the resources that community has already.
Yeah, I think what Myra's saying is something we have talked about. It is, this needs to be a customizable program that, you know, it's going to be customized based on what the community needs are and what their current resources are.
There's also a question in the chat from Eric on how close are we to offering the train the trainer to other extension professionals?
We talked about that too recently, and we would like to go ahead now. We feel like we're ready to do that. What we're seeking right now is input. We need input on, well, what works, what doesn't work. So we're wanting to work with a team of extension educators. You know, we're ready to do that now.
How
And
long
Becky,
is the program? Oh, sorry.
sorry, Becky, Susan's asking about the link to the Vinton plan. I'm not sure if that's online somewhere. We can provide that.
Mhm. It is. It's on the handout that you uploaded into the chat. So the link to our web pages is on the PDF. And then once you click on our web pages, then there's a link at the bottom of those. I might be able to put that into chat. Let me go over there.
You do have a link to the website on the bottom of the
Right.
the slide with our names, I think. Maybe it's not there.
So this is a link to our webpage that talks a little bit more about the program. And if you scroll down to the bottom there, you'll see that there's the Vinton County example is another link that you can click on.
So you said that's in the slide deck. How do I get the slide deck? Because I don't see any links or place to download the slide deck.
We can provide that to Jan and it will get posted, I believe, with NACDEP materials. Is that how they typically do it, Nicole?
The video itself is posted. Perhaps we could, I don't know if it'd be too big to email, maybe if you PDF'd it.
If you
Oh.
PDF it, you drop it in the chat now, we get it quick, but I don't know if you could do it that quickly.
And I was just thinking, I don't have everyone's email either.
Right. Because this
So-
isn't something you register for.
Right, exactly. I don't know if you want to try to manage that OSU team, if people put their emails in the chat, or if there's another way that you could get that. And it looks like, just a quick question, it looks like the overview document is also the information that's on the site. Is that right? At that link? So Talia, I know you said you had trouble downloading. So when you go to that link to the website, you'll get that same information. Oh, and Mike brought up a good point to me that we could also put a link, if there's a place to download the slides, we could put a link in the YouTube comments section as well.
YouTube. How do you
Yep.
get to the YouTube?
It's the NACDEP YouTube. So when that gets posted, I think that usually goes out in an announcement. So the communications committee will post that on the YouTube page.
So the Claritas data that someone was talking about, when I was a Main Street manager, we used that quite a bit to evaluate our downtown area. But it required a subscription, I believe, to Claritas. And now when I just went in, again, it's asking for my username and password. So it feels like that could be something that we have to sign up for or pay for.
Well,
not
if
free.
you, did you, I think you have to go into it's called zip code lookup. Yeah, for a more robust services, you would need to join, but just for the profile that I showed on the slide, you can get that free. It's a zip code lookup through Claritas. It's called the Prism zip code lookup. you should be able to bring it up using that.
All right, we've got about 1 minute. Does anyone else have a quick question that the team could address? I see people dropping off. I know what happens at this time. For some people, it's lunchtime, and for other people, they have to get back to other things. Mike,
So,
are you on mute? Go ahead.
so just to reiterate, the OSU team is fine with others of us out here in the far-flung corners of the countryside to give a shot at implementing the program and reporting back to you on how it goes.
Well, I don't want to speak for the whole team, but I think that's what we talked about, right, team, is that we're ready to kind of float it out there. We're looking for feedback. That's we want to be able to make sure that it's relevant, working, it's what we want it to be. So anything else the team can say about that? I mean, I say yes, but I want to hear from the rest of the team too.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think we would like to know that you're doing that. And if you have any questions throughout the process, we can help you with that. And then also to give OSU Extension credit and this team would be really helpful. So I'm fine with that. Other team members want to weigh in?
And I posted the slides as a PDF in the chat. Hopefully that works.
And I think before that, we're saying that we would have to do a second pilot study of it in Delaware County before we can open that for other states, out of state testing. So I don't know whether that is still what we're holding on to.
All right, very good. We are at the end of our hour. Can we get some virtual hand claps for the team? Or real, if you want to just hold your hands up there and tell them thank you. Excellent job today, excellent presentation, obviously of great interest to the group that showed up today. You had a pretty good crowd. Thank you, Gwen. John, go ahead.
Oh, I am downloading that last document, so don't close out yet. Okay, it looks like you're downloading.
All right, very good. Okay. Well done. We put an announcement and you'll see it in your email as well for the next Wednesday webinar on November 9th from Russ Garner at the Southern Region Rural Development Center. So hope to see you there as well. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Benton County thanks you too.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks. All right, well done, y'all. Take care.
Bye.
All right.